right, so right now on TobattoVision, we are going to be ranking the homes and hideaways of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And what that means is we're going to rank all of the houses that the Sawyer/Hewitt family lives in across the franchise, as well as their hideaways, such as Part 2, and the non-Sawyer, non-Hewitt residents of 3D. Well, I guess it's still a Sawyer family home, but it's not. It's Verna Carson. It's not really a Sawyer per se, as well as the old lady from 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, who is not a Sawyer or a Hewitt. But we're going to rank all of those and see which one really stacks up. And our usual list is Chainsaw Gold, which is the best, followed by Pretty Damn Awesome, Good, Decent, Meh, Not Into It, and Garbage. I doubt any of these will really make the garbage cut, but I guess we'll see. We're going to start with the house from the first movie, the 1974 film, as well as the prologue of the 2013 Texas Chainsaw 3D film. There's not much to say about this house. It's iconic for sure. It's where Kirk met it's where everybody from the first film met their demise, really, where we were first introduced to Leatherface. I was terrified of this house as a kid. As I got older, I realized it really is just a typical Texas farmhouse. It's not overbearingly frightening visually, but in the movie, it really becomes its own beast. And with that said, in the movie itself, the first film, as well as the prologue to 3D, I think it really stands on its own as the chainsaw house. It's iconic as all hell, and it would be an abomination to put it anywhere but Chainsaw Gold. I know it's the typical answer here for the first house, but it really belongs there. It really does. And moving on to Chainsaw 2 from 1986, the Sawyers had already long since fled the first house, and they are living in secret in the ruins of an abandoned theme park in Texas called Texas Battleland. The theme park itself, we don't see a whole lot of the exteriors, but the interiors that we see, that whole set from Part 2, the red lights, the Christmas lights, the pipes and the dirt and the roots and all that, it's a really horrifyingly cozy atmosphere. Fantastic set design, second to none, really. I think it's as iconic, if not more iconic, than the first movie's house all these years later. So with that said, I'm going to put the Texas Battleland location also in Chainsaw Gold. And moving on to Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 from 1990, it sort of went back to its roots of another standard Texas farmhouse being the location of the family. It's a different facet of the Sawyer family in this movie. Still sort of unexplained, but it's there. I do like this house. We don't see a whole lot of the exterior shots, and the photo I'm using is kind of dark, so just bear with me. But I really think, at least from the outside, it's a really cool looking house, really mysterious looking, really overbearing. The whole yard is just dirt. It's surrounded by woods. It's not very welcoming, which it shouldn't be. And I think it works perfectly. We see a lot of the inside of the house. I think the inside of the house really sells that facet of the family's madness. It's not as dirty as the original house, but it's somehow crazier. And if you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So with that said, I'm going to put the Part 3 house in Pretty Damn Awesome. I think it deserves to be there. It's almost Chainsaw Gold, but I'll keep it in Pretty Damn Awesome. I think that makes sense. Moving on to the fourth film's house. If you guys have been watching this channel long enough, you've heard me spiel about Part 4 before. I'm not a fan of that movie. I'm not really a fan of the cast or the story or the music or really anything about that movie. It's crazy and quirky and wonky and weird. But those are the only real positive things I can say about it. The exterior of the house is a basic farmhouse. Nothing really iconic about it. It sort of looks like the first film's house, but sort of reversed. But it's not as grand or impactful, especially within the context of that film. And the inside of the house, it's a good set piece inside the house, but it's really just a cluttered wreck. There's mannequins and dirt everywhere and broken furniture and grime and dirt and clutter and all that stuff. So in that regard, it's a disgusting house. It's probably filthier than the first movie or the third movie's house, but it's still, I mean, the movie itself is not good, but the house works for the film. Not as cool as part 3's house. So with that said, I'm going to put it in good. It's good. That's probably the best thing I've said about part 4 overall, is that the house itself is good and not garbage. So with that said, we'll move on to the 2003 and 2006 films, the Michael Bay produced Platinum Dunes TCM films, the 2003 remake, and the 2006 prequel. Yes.
They're going to meet SpongeBob.
Are they?
Yeah.
Wow. Don't pick your nose. Have you been picking your nose over here? Has she been picking her nose this whole time? The house from the 2003 and 2006 film is absolutely iconic. Some would argue, and I have to say it's a valid argument, that it's more iconic than the original house. And visually, you know, I could sort of agree with that. I mean, it's the first film, as iconic as it is, that house looks like a typical standard quiet, peaceful Texas homestead, whereas the house in the reboot, or the 2003 remake, and its 2006 prequel, it's a huge mansion at the edge of a giant field, huge white pillars out front, double chimneys, a huge house that shoots out the back away from the main part of the house. It's a huge, huge house. Very striking looking, very grand. It looks almost warm and welcome and inviting, but, you know, once you get up to it and in it, you realize how moldy everything is, how mildewy everything is. It's rotting, it's in ruins, it's just in shambles, but it's a great house. It's an absolutely iconic house. And I really can see and almost buy into the argument that it's the most iconic house of the franchise. I mean, if you put that house up anywhere, people know what movie it's from. If you put the original house up, a lot of people may not click right away. But the 2003 and 2006 house, it's absolutely iconic. So with that said, I'm going to put that in Chainsaw Gold. Absolutely. Up next, we have Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is it's Verna Carson's mansion. So it's not really a Sawyer house. I mean, it is because she's a Sawyer, but I think it's her late husband's house. Hence the Carson name. But it's a big white mansion, a very clean, pristine estate, unlike the other houses and homesteads of the series. Because again, it's not really a Sawyer house, it's a Carson house, and Leatherface just happens to be living in the basement. But it's a really cool looking house. It's nowhere near iconic as the first or 2003 films, but it's a really cool house. It does its job for the film, it complements the story, but it's not really something I would call iconic in any way. But I would say it's good. It works. It's creepy to an extent. It's a very antique. It's very much like the mansion from Curse of Chucky, although less CG. I don't think there's any CG for this house, unlike Curse of Chucky. But it's that same aesthetic, a very clean, pristine, haunted house, mansion style southern home. It's fantastic. For the context of 3D, it fits really well. I'm going to say it's good. It's better than decent. It's not awesome. It's good. Sort of like the Part 3 house. To a lesser extent, obviously. For Leatherface, and for the 2017 Leatherface movie, that's basically just the original 1974 house built again for that movie. So we're not going to rank it as its own thing because it's really just that house again. So moving on to the next and final location from the series, the final dwelling of Leatherface, if you will, thus far in the series, is the orphanage house. I think it's an old orphanage that Leatherface has sort of been adopted into by the events of 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's been living there with this old lady, and it's sort of his house now, and he didn't grow up there or anything, but he didn't grow up there or anything. She's not a Sawyer, but it's where he lives. It's a spooky house in the middle of this abandoned town. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's nothing to write home about. It's a creepy 2-story, 3-story, maybe even house. But you don't really see a lot of it. You see the basement. You see the bedroom of the old lady. When Leatherface is getting ready, you see him stalking the basement to find the girl through the walls and stuff. You see the staircase in the kitchen, but it doesn't really... I shouldn't say you don't see a lot of it, because I guess you see a lot of it, but it just doesn't really stand out. But it fits the story. So I will say that the house, I'm rambling on and on, the house from 2022 is at least decent. Almost good, but I think the locations from 3 and 3D are better than the house in 2022. So with that said, it lives in decent. And that right there completes the list. We have 3 options in Chainsaw Gold, 1 in Awesome, 2 in Good, and 1 in Decent. I think earlier I was saying it lives with the Part 3 house as far regards to the 3D choice, but that's with the New Generation house. Part 3 is pretty damn awesome, so I made a mistake back there a little bit. So bear with me as always. So let's stack them up and rank them. To do that, I'm going to put them all in the first line. So pay no attention to the ranking labels now, because we're going to rank these from best to least, or from least to best, however you want to look at it. So my least favorite is obviously the 2022 house, followed by the New Generation house, followed by the 3D house, followed by the Part 3 house, followed by the... Ooh, this is a tough choice. I'm going to say the 2003 house for sure. That almost goes to 1, but I still think the original house is the most iconic. Followed by the original house, followed by Texas Battleland at number 1. So, Texas Battleland, everything about that location is Chainsaw Gold, number 1. Followed by the original house, the 2003 house, Part 3 house, the 3D house, the Next Generation house, and concluding at the least with the 2022 house. So with that said, there's my rankings of the hideaways and homes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your rankings in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want to see more of these types of videos, and I will see you guys next time.